Welcome to Crimepedia. I am Cherry. I am your host this week, and with me, as always, is my partner in crime. It's Morgan.
Hello, Cherry.
Have you finished your Cheetos now?
Almost. But that made me think of our dumb criminal from a while back.
It did.
The Cheeto Bandit.
As soon as I saw your fingers, I was like, we did do a dumb criminal about a bandit once that got caught because they had been eating Cheetos and had Cheeto dust all over their fingers. So yes, well, welcome to Crimepedia. We are a weekly podcast talking about all different things crime related, but mostly we work with unsolved crimes across the UK and across Europe and also in America and all that end of the world as well.
We do.
So if you would like to join our Patreon, which is sometimes crime related, but a little bit more nonsense related, I would say. Although today was very crime related. Today's episode
was very crime related.
It was very crime. Quite a good discussion today. You can do. All you need to do is go to patreon.com, find Crimepedia, and then you can sign up for like $2 a month if that's what you want to do. Or there's loads of different tiers that you can join. So this week's case is an interesting case. And this week's case, I think this is going to be one of those ones that makes you go, no!
Oh,
because usually that's the sort of case you give to me. You usually give me the no cases. You're very good at the however cases, just as I think something's going to be solved. So this week's case, I think, is going to drive you all crazy. It is an unsolved case. It's a British case. And I think you're going to find this one really, really interesting.
Let's do it.
This week's case is the case of Albert Welch. "45-year-old Albert Welch had lived in a council house in Cranborne Crescent in Potters Bar, Middlesex, with his wife Phyllis and their 16-year-old son. He worked on the railways as a railway electrician, known to his colleagues as Snakey. He was looking to move out of Potters Bar, though why is unknown. Albert left his home in Cranborne Crescent and boarded a train to work. That was the last time that anyone saw him alive. This is Crimepedia, and this is just one of the Potters Bar murders, the case of Albert Welch." Okay, Morgan, so we know that Albert Welch lived with his wife and his son, and we know that he lived in Potters Bar, which is a town in Hertfordshire in England. It's about 13 miles north of central London. The houses on Cranborne Crescent look to be quite big. Now, I've looked at them from Google Maps now. So I've been back and had a look at the houses, and they don't look much dissimilar to what they do now. It doesn't look like an overcrowded area. The houses there now are worth around 500 to 750,000 for like a 3 and 4 bedroom house. It looks like quite a nice area, quite quiet. On the evening of the 17th of November, 1947, Albert's wife remembers that she believed him to have left for work. But she remembers thinking that she heard someone downstairs at about 10:15 p.m. She believed that was Albert. So the following morning, because he used to work nights sometime, the following morning she came downstairs to see that tea had been made in a pot in the kitchen and that someone had eaten breakfast, which she believed to have been Albert. So she believes that he was at work, came home, and then had eaten stuff, gone to work again, and then the following morning she believes that he's eaten and gone back to work. So he's done a night shift. There was a note on the table which read, Phyllis, I've gone for a walk, shan't be in for tea, Albert. So she just assumes, okay, he's gone out again and that's it, and he'll come back. He had taken with him his identity card and his ration book. Now, Britain had an identity card system between 1939 and 1952. So this was compulsory issue of identity, and this was a piece of wartime emergency legislation, which was called the National Registration Act. The Act set up a national register which would contain details of all citizens, and identity cards were then issued to all the civilians on that list. So the register, and it says on the website that the register comprised all persons in the UK at the appointed time and all persons entering or born in the United Kingdom after that time. So the things that were in these identity cards were your name, your sex, your age, your occupation or your profession, your residence, if you were married, and if you were a member of the naval, military, air force, or any reserves or anything like that. So rationing was also a means then of making sure that there was fair distribution of food and different commodities when they were really scarce. So it began after the start of World War II, and petrol was rationed first. But then other things such as butter, sugar, bacon, and then eventually pretty much everything was covered by rationing except for fruit and veg. So we're thinking it was like at that sort of time. So if you think back to how it would have been then, this is the sort of time we're talking about. Albert's wife, Phyllis, remembers that when she last talked to him before he left home, he was talking about looking for work in the coal mines. So he was employed as an electrician on the railways, but he wanted to change his profession. He wanted to move away. Not sure why. It doesn't say anywhere why he wanted to leave or if there was a specific reason that he wanted to leave, whether he was unhappy. It doesn't actually say anywhere online in any of the things that I've found about this. There's not a lot about this case online, which I'm really surprised about, because when I get into the case, you'll find it's very strange. Phyllis had said that she assumed Albert had just gone off to stay with his father to cause her anxiety, because she said that was his nature. He would do that sometimes. He would just try and upset her and do that, as was the relationship back then. She didn't worry at first when he first didn't come home. So she noticed that he had always wanted to leave Potter's Bar, but she also said that whilst he often worked night shifts, he had never gone out without her knowing where he was. So he usually told her eventually where he was after he sort of done it to make her a bit angry or make her a bit upset and worried. She said that she didn't report Albert missing until the 20th of November because she had expected him to come back. So when it got sort of, a bit of time that he had gone and hadn't come back, she then phoned the police. So there's nothing to say that he had taken any clothes with him, only his ration book and only his identity card. That's all he'd taken. There's nothing that I could read to find that he's taken like extra clothes or money or anything like that. Literally that he just went out, so which she assumed he'd gone to upset her.
Yeah, so you would assume that this wasn't, there was no plan on it being an extended stay somewhere else.
That's right.
That he was just going to leave, get away for a little bit, then come back.
Yeah. Now, during the police investigation into his disappearance, the police went to the Midlands and also northern coalfields on the theory that he might have been working in a coal pit in one of those areas. He might have actually made the move, gone over and worked in a coal pit on his own and left his family. I mean, these things do happen. He's a fully grown adult. This could have been what had happened. He was last seen by a woman railway guard who said that Albert had an emergency call to attend to the line on the night of the 17th of November. She said she remembered him getting on her train at about 11 p.m. and going to Hadley Wood Station, which would actually work because the walk from his house to the train station was about 15 to 17 minutes, I think it was. If his wife remembers hearing him downstairs at about 10:15, and then this lady remembers seeing him at about 11, it would work. He would sort of leave home if he left home just after 10:15, he would get to the train station for about 10:30, or maybe a bit later if he left after that, and then got onto the train when she remembers seeing him at 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So it's possible that he went and did this night shift call out and then went home, because if you remember, the next morning she remembers seeing that there was tea in the pot and there was breakfast things on the table with a note saying, "I've gone for a walk." So what I'm thinking has happened, he got called out by the emergency night thing, so which means he wouldn't have had to work the next day because he's been called out overnight.
Yeah.
So then he's finished his shift at night, gone home, had something to eat, and then gone out for a walk.
Okay.
So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it is the timeline for this. Police searched countrywide.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay.
So police had searched countrywide. He was described as 45, 5'6" tall, medium build, with brown hair, grey eyes, and an oval face with a cyst just on his forehead. And like I said before, his colleagues had nicknamed him Snakey. Now, on the 2nd of July, 1948, the police dug up the next door neighbour's garden next to Albert and to Phyllis. It was reported that they would dig into a plan Now, this house was actually owned by a former police officer, ex-Metropolitan Police officer. And I've read in the reports that he was said to have been assisting them throughout their inquiry. It was nothing to do with him, but they had been given these plots, and they'd been four officers had been digging in the garden, and that they had left these big patches of freshly turned over earth in the front and back of these gardens. So the gardens along where Albert and Phyllis Welch's side of the Cranborne Crescent had backed on to the Potters Bar Golf Club land. So when you have a look at it on Google Maps, at the moment, it does that isn't labelled as Potters Bar Golf Club. If you put in Potters Bar Golf Club, it's like an hour away. So I'm thinking that the golf club used to be very close to their home, because, like you saw, there's a big plot of land there, which does look like golf club terrain.
And I did verify that, because you did send this to me before we started the episode. Yeah. That was the Potter's Bar Golf Club. Yeah. It opened in 1924, closed in 2018.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So
it was right behind
where they lived,
across the train tracks.
Yes. Yeah. So on the 22nd of May 1948, 6 months after Albert was reported missing, a ball boy was diving in Tiddler's Pond near the 7th tee on the Potters Bar Golf Club. Now, like you said, it was opened in 1923 and then it was closed in 2018. It was located just a few miles outside the town of Potters Bar itself, and it was described as an exceptionally demanding course. So plenty of hazards. And if you look at the aerial view of it, it is you can see that the terrain is very different. But rather than finding golf balls, this young lad discovered a severed hand that had been rotting in the water.
Oh.
Police drained the pond, and unfortunately, it was a pretty grisly sight. A whole body was found. It was burnt, but it was also dismembered. So they did find a whole body, but it was dismembered into lots of different pieces. Now, this was recovered alongside a hacksaw, which an inquest later on concluded was actually used to dismember this body. So police eliminated 35 other missing men from their inquiries before they started to believe that this could actually be Albert Welch. At first, Phyllis refused to believe that it was him. The severed hand that they had found in the water was actually a very manicured hand, which she said it couldn't have been her husband, because her husband had really rough workman's hands. But his colleagues at work said that he would wear gloves while he was working, and then when they were on a break, he would be there cleaning his hands and manicuring his hands, which they all thought was a bit strange. On Friday, the 3rd of September 1948, it was reported that a man had called the Leeds City Police from a phone in City Square to say that he was Albert Welch and that he wasn't dead, and wanted to explain to the police why he had not come forward. So the police, whilst he was on the phone, sent a police car out to him, but by the time they got to where the call had originated from, the man had gone. But he had given a description of himself, which was a description of Albert Welch. So he actually gave a description of Albert Welch, but they couldn't find him.
Okay.
Because by the time they got there, he had gone. So that was really strange. I think that was a really strange thing.
That's very strange.
Yeah. And they never heard from him again. He just called up to say, I am Albert Welch. I haven't come forward because I'm missing, but I'm okay. This is what I look like. This is who I am. Basically, like I'm alive and I'm fine. But he never called back again.
Well, why
would someone do that?
Okay. Yeah.
It's strange. I find that weird.
Okay. I guess I could see someone doing that, but why would someone do it? I think that's the better question. Why would someone do that? What would be the point of saying, "Hey, I'm Albert. This is what I look like. I'm missing," and then just kind of like let it be?
Because you killed him, and you want the police to think that he's alive, and you can describe him because you killed him.
Oh,
yeah, maybe.
I see.
So a doctor. We had the real Albert Welch's inquest that took place on Thursday, the 18th of November, 1948. And police evidence shown at the inquest included photographs of Albert Welch and of the skull that was found. And a police inspector said, from my tests, I quote, I am of the opinion that the skull in the pond could very well have been that of Albert Welch. Now, a doctor from the Metropolitan Police Laboratory who carried out tests on a pair of Albert Welch's boots that had been supplied by Phyllis said, in my view, there is a remarkable accurate fit between the X-ray photographs of the feet and my internal impressions made from the boots. They took a plaster cast of the feet, right, that they found in the pond.
Yes.
Then they fitted this plaster cast of the feet into Albert's boots, his own boots that his wife had given to the police. And despite being in the water for such a long time, these feet, police had also managed to fit them in exactly into the pair of boots. Which is, that's how they did things back then. When we're talking 1947, so they're doing it with x-rays, aren't they? And things like that.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I mean, so the feet would fit into the boot. But I mean, if it's like a very average sized foot, then why would that be so shocking?
Well, exactly. And also, if it felt slightly too small, if you had real feet going in there, you would feel it pushing against your feet, wouldn't you? But if you're pushing plaster of Paris in, it's going to push the boot out rather than push the toes in, isn't it? So it would make it kind of fit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought it was a clever thing to do, but I'm wondering how.
It is, but I don't think you can be definitive about it, right?
But you can be definitive about a perfect fingerprint.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
and the police found a nearly perfect fingerprint, whole fingerprint as well, on one of the hands. Despite the fact that they'd been in water for all that time, they actually found a whole fingerprint from one of the hands.
Okay.
But obviously, they didn't have anything like our computer systems back then, did they? To be able to run that through a computer system. So it was also heard shortly before Albert went missing that he had complained that his upper dentures had been hurt in his mouth. I mean, he was like in his 40s and he had dentures. The doctor that examined his body said that the evidence that he found was to suggest that there had been an abscess in the upper jaw of the remains that were found in the pond. The pathologist who worked on the case was a guy called Donald Tier. He was a leading British pathologist. He later carried out autopsies on Bruce Lee, as well as Jimi Hendrix in 1970. He also supervised the autopsy of Brian Epstein in 1967. And he worked with two other guys, Keith Simpson and Francis Camps. And they were called, the three of them together were called the Three Musketeers. And they dealt with almost all of the suspicious deaths in the London area. They were called to give evidence on lots and lots of high-profile criminal investigations. And a little interesting fact for you. The pathologist who worked on this case, this Donald Tier, was the person that first published the first modern description of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy in 1958. The first person to write anything about that. And that disease today is considered the leading cause of sudden cardiac death in young athletes. And he was the first person to write about it. So this guy knows what he's doing. He's pretty good at his job.
Yeah. That's very interesting, yeah.
I know. I was like, can I say hypertrophic cardiomyopathy without messing it up? And yes, I did.
Good job. Good job.
There were no edits in that part of the case today. So during the examination of the body parts that they found in the lake, Donald said that he examined the front portion of the upper jaw and found that this had partly been destroyed by fire. He said there was considerable destruction to the forehead by fire and that the other body remains had showed blackening. The state of the forehead was consistent with a heavy blow to the forehead, and the analysis of blood suggested that a hemorrhage had occurred within the vicinity of the forehead. So he believes that the blow had been struck before Albert had died, because of the way that the blood had pooled and hemorrhaged in the head. He also said that he thought that the body had been dismembered chiefly by means of a fine blade saw, which was probably a hacksaw, which they also found with the body. He said he was of the opinion that death was due to hemorrhage around the brain after the fracture of the skull, and that the burning of the nose and the forehead had occurred after death. Unfortunately, I couldn't reach out to Donald Tier because he died in the 17th of January, 1979. He was only 67, but he passed away. I did look to see if I could contact him, but unfortunately not. So the inquest then concluded that Albert Welch had died on either the 17th or the 18th of November, based on the fact that no one had seen him after that. And the inquest returned a verdict of murder by a person or persons unknown by blow on the forehead. That's what that was the cause of death.
I would assume that his death would have been very soon after he left that morning.
Yes. Well, here we go.
That'd be my assumption.
Listen to this. I found the police file, okay, in the National Archives. You know how much I love an archive.
Yeah.
Now, despite
you love it,
Metropolitan Police detectives re-examining evidence of this murder, the custodians of the file at the National Archives in Kew have refused to grant any access to these case details. The case has been sealed until the 1st of January 2045.
2045?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I submitted a Freedom of Information request, as I usually do, and the explanation as to why I can't access the records wasn't very clear. But it does say, under health and safety rules, it's deemed that the revelations of this case could endanger the physical or mental health of any individual. The National Archives wrote back and said, we're required to consider whether it is in the public interest to release the information you have requested. It may be that we decide that the public interest would not be served by releasing the information. Now, a spokeswoman for the National Archives said to me that government files are usually closed for 30 years, but if they contain personal or sensitive information pertaining to certain individuals, you can tell that this is verbatim what she said, pertaining to certain individuals or their relatives who may still be alive, means that they will remain closed for longer periods, such as 75 or 100 years. Okay. Now, I know for a fact that the Welling Hatfield Times have submitted repeated Freedom of Information requests for this to make these files regarding the murder public. They've been rejected. I know that there's been numerous other news sources that have also requested this that have come back. I've requested and it's come back as no. Originally, it was only sealed for 30 years, and then when I looked, it had been extended. So they re-looked at it in 2022, and they've extended it to now 2045 until we can look at it.
What?
Well, think about it, okay? So they're saying that any information in there could pertain to any person still alive. Well, Albert's wife is not alive anymore, okay? Their son, 16 at the time, would now be 92. So the case is 76 years old. I can only imagine that it's his family, or like the son's family, or family of any other children that Phyllis may have had, that this is talking about. Because maybe it's the son. Maybe it's the son's family that they're trying to protect. But what? Apparently, the details of the case are so grisly and gruesome that they're refusing to let them out into the public. I mean, we already know that he was dismembered. That's gruesome enough.
Wait, did Phyllis do it?
Well, Phyllis isn't alive anymore.
That would be... Yeah, but they don't want to damage... I don't know. What?
That's right. I mean, the son is never named. The son has never been named in any of the news articles or reports or anything that I've read. So I wonder whether it's the son that's the reason that they're not allowing it. I mean, he's 92, but he might have a family. He may have children, grandchildren. Maybe that's why.
Wait, how old was he at the time?
16 at the time of his murder.
This is so... I'm so confused about this.
I know.
This is the second time we've had this issue.
I know, it is.
Second time.
Yeah, I know.
Last time it was because the Queen did it. This time, I don't know. I
know. It's strange, isn't it? Well, I joined this Facebook group.
Why?
Okay?
Why do they do this?
I joined this Facebook group about Potter's Bar in the 40s. It was a closed group, and I joined this group, and there was loads of people posting about this case. And they posted that they think they know locally who killed Albert. Apparently, it was well known locally who killed him, but a person has not been arrested for it, and they're very cagey to talk about who they do about naming this person. But they also talked about lots of other murders in the area, right? Listen to this. On April the 29th, 1955, the body of Elizabeth Currell was found near the 17th tee of the Potter's Bar golf course.
Shut up.
No, seriously. She had been hit 4 times by a tee marker, and there was an attempt to strangle her. The killer's bloody palm print had been left on the weapon, leading police to take prints from over 9,000 men aged between 16 and 45, right? Now, in the Facebook group, a lot of the people are saying that they remember their brother having their palm prints taken, their dad's having palm prints taken. And one of the ladies that was on there actually says that when she was younger, her brother had his palm print taken. It was given back to him because you had the choice of whether you had it back or not. And it was given back to him. And whilst they were cleaning out some stuff when one of their parents passed away, they found this handprint that he had to give for this murder. Now, after ruling out over 4,000 of these prints, they finally found a match. And it was her husband that killed her.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, her husband killed her.
Of course it was.
Yeah.
It's always a husband.
So then another murder that happened in Potter's Bar was a guy called Mike Walker. He had a fish shop on the Broadway. He was murdered, but it's mentioned in the Facebook group. There's I couldn't find anything online about this murder. Now, in May 1986, a lady called Anne left for work, was never seen alive again. After 9 weeks of searching, railway line workers spotted a body on a nearby embankment, and police had identified that as Anne. I believe she is she was one of the victims in the programme, I think, that Colin Sutton did, Manhunter, about the railway line murders.
Oh,
I
really?
believe she is one of the victims of that. We also have November 99, Sharon Malone, 28, bludgeoned to death by her husband, Gary Malone, in the bedroom of their home in Cranborne Crescent.
Oh, wow.
Which is where Albert lived, okay? Her body was dumped in woodlands in North Mims, and then it was discovered 4 months later. In 2014, the body of 41-year-old Mitardis Papalopoulos was known as Milton to his friends. He was found in Parkview, Potter's Bar. He's believed he was bound and smothered to death. And there's more. There's more deaths since.
This is like a small little town.
I know. It's not even very big. And there's more murders other than that. The problem is with this case, with Albert's case, is that the details are quite sketchy. We don't know much about Albert himself. We know that he had a nickname, which was Snakey. I mean, if your nickname's Snakey kind of gives you the connotation that that's not a nice nickname.
Yeah.
So why was he called Snakey? Why did he want to leave Potter's Bar? What was the reason? Had something happened at work? Why was he unhappy? You know, that's strange. The location of the body suggests that the actual killing happened not far from his home, which backed onto the golf course land. I straight away, when I was looking at this, I thought Phyllis. I thought, would Phyllis be able to do this with the help of her 16-year-old son? Would she have been able to kill him, hit him over the head, then
chop him up?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Would she have been able to chop him up and then take him up and chuck him in the? I mean, are people about on a golf course at night? Probably not. Their garden backs right out onto the golf course. Could it have been that they took him up and dumped him in there in bits, in bags? You know. Because they're not going to be able to carry a body out there with people being able to see him. I don't know forensically if their house was, searched. Did they have? I don't even think they had luminol back in those days. But did they search the house thoroughly?
I think that he was. So could he have been killed at the house? So you're saying could he have been killed at the house and then his body cut up there and then transferred to the location? Yeah.
I mean, I'm not blaming Phyllis by any means. I'm just looking at what could have happened.
But could
that have been the case?
Definitely
with the help of her son.
Yeah.
Could it have been that they had an argument? She'd argue, or the son and him had an argument. They'd whacked him on the head, killed him, then thought, "Shit, we've killed him. What are we going to do? How can we get rid of him?" I don't know why they would. The only reason I can think of dismembering him is for the ease of carrying. That's the only reason I could think of. Why would you dismember him? It would be for the ease of disposing of him.
The ease.
The ease of disposing of him. So perhaps that was my first thought on this case. We don't know if he's got any enemies. We don't know if he was having an affair with anybody. We don't know if he frequented any local pubs or any local clubs or any, did he go and play bowls or something? Or did he have any weird habits that that people didn't like him for. We don't know a lot about him. And I honestly think that unless we have somebody that comes forward with information, you and I will be 65 when they release, if they release this file. Because it's quite possible that in 10 years' time, they'll look at this again and they'll say, no, we're going to keep it going for another 30 years. And
so could it have been the son that made that? Could it have been the son that made that call? Let's say, "Hey, I'm Albert. Here's my description.
I'm fine. I've just left.
Because
I'm
obviously,
fine.
if the description was that good, it has to be someone that knows him well enough to be able to describe him.
Yeah.
And that would explain why they decided to extend the not releasing the file.
Yes. Although he would be 92, so if it was something to do with him, because obviously Phyllis has passed away, but he's probably got family members.
But would that extend to if he has kids? Would that extend to the lifespan of his kids?
I believe so. Any persons named in the report that can identify any member that would be detrimental to their life. So if we were to find out it was his, I don't know, the son's daughter was still alive, could we then go and find her and start trying to interview her? That's probably why, I think. Because it would be detrimental to her life, people trying to find her and talk to her.
Well, to her life.
Exactly. The problem I find with this kind of thing is that if the files are sealed and we're not being given any information, how do you expect to get new information if no information is being released?
You wouldn't.
No. Unless
it's dead. The case is just dead.
Unless you get a Facebook group like the one I've been looking at, where people are saying, "My dad did this. My dad was a suspect in that until he was released. This has happened." I can remember. There's one on there. There's a couple of comments on there. I can remember them draining the pond on the golf course. I was about 6 years old at the time. And the police were talking about gypsies that used to cook the hedgehogs up there. It's things like that. That is the way that that you're going to get new information out. It's going to be where somebody reads the, locals of Potter's Bar in 1940 something, goes, "Oh, I used to live in Potter's Bar in 1940. Do you remember?" And then says something. And that's when the police go, "Aha." But unless you have those little conversations and stuff publicly, how are you gonna find out more information to keep this case going?
Exactly. So I just thought about this. When we always say, when someone goes through this much difficulty to hide a person or hide a death, what does it usually get linked back to? Someone who knows the victim, right?
Yeah.
You would have to have a reason to be hiding the body. So if you have no links to the victim, you don't really need to worry about hiding the fact that he's gone.
That's right.
Or dead, right? So did Phyllis and the son kill him, hide him,
leave it a while to report him missing? It's interesting. It's an interesting point, isn't it? Because there isn't anything online about him having any kind of issues, or other than his wife saying he tried to cause me, he would leave and cause me distress or whatever. That's the only real thing. The only real thing. I tried to see if I could get the court transcripts, but they're not released. You can't get them because they're obviously sealed within Q. I wish I worked there. I could have a good old nose through all these files. You wouldn't be able to say anything, but at least you could read them and you'd know yourself, wouldn't you?
Oh, that would kill you, though.
It would kill me.
Absolutely kill you.
Yeah, it would kill me, to be fair.
Not to be able to say anything.
No, it would. And I wouldn't say anything because that's your job, but it would kill me to know these things and not be able to say. So with that, the case remains unsolved to this day, and we still don't know what happened to Albert Welch.
What does your gut tell you? What do you think?
My first thought, and my thought all the way through it, was this was a domestic. I don't know if he was angry, if he was a bit abusive, and she's something's happened in the house. I don't know why that's my first thought, but I was trying to think, why would somebody dismember him if you could have just taken him up and chucked him in this pond? Why would you dismember him?
Yeah.
The only reason to dismember him was to the ease of transporting him, but also he was burnt.
Exactly.
So I'd be very interested to see, how was he burnt? Did they have fireplaces in that cottage, or in their house? Were they trying to burn him in the grate or something? Did they cut him up to try and burn him? Then when it wouldn't burn properly, because it takes a hell of a lot to burn a body in such a small area, did they then think, right, we're going to have to get rid of him, where can we go? There's a pond on there, let's go and chuck him in the pond. No one's going to be going in the pond. But I would have thought they must know that you dredge that pond to get the golf balls out, because every golf course does that. If there's water on a golf course, they always dredge the ponds to get the golf balls back.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that was a silly thing to do, because someone's going to be getting in there to get the balls at some point. So, and in water, the body's not going to decompose as quick as in fire.
That would probably, I'm guessing that was probably the closest pond or body of water to them.
Yeah, I wonder.
They probably didn't have any other transportation.
No.
So they're not going to be carrying these body parts across the town.
No.
To the next nearest lake or pond, right? So
That's
they're just like, this is the closest place to drop the body.
And you could put bits of him in bags. And if it's nighttime, the son, it was young, 16-year-old boy. So he's fit, young, I would guess. And perhaps it was his job to go up and down to get rid of dad.
Yeah.
And if dad was abusive and he was horrible to his mum and he's sticking up for his mum, I don't know what their home life was like, whether it was a happy home, whether it's not, it might not have been Phyllis, but I do think that you do have to look at that as a possible, and the fact that they've sealed those records again. The husband, the son would be now 92. Doesn't mean to say he's not, he might still be living, might be a really healthy 92-year-old. So.
It's interesting.
I know. But again, one of those cases, and I must say thank you to one of our listeners. The listener is a guy called Paul, who messaged on Instagram and gave me the title of a really good book, and it has lots of different unsolved cases from 1947 in it. And it just so happened that this is one of the cases that was featured in that book that I was looking at before he sent me that. So thank you very much to you, Paul, for sending that over to me. I appreciate it. It was a really good read. I did get the book and I have read it. And it's right up my street, as you said it would be. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the map.
I knew you'd love this. It's got map in it. I knew you'd love it.
That is quite a bit of a walk to get from where Cranborne Crescent is up to, because there's only one pond. There's only one pond on this whole golf course.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's the same pond. So it's like on the northern edge of the golf course, and they're closer to the south. They're like the southern. So yeah, they basically had to walk across the whole golf course to drop the body parts into that little pond. Because
even now, with the way it is now, you can see, can't you? You can see the little sand bunkers, and you can see the pond itself. So, yeah, it's a long way. But if you are desperate, what else are you going to do?
That's true.
Other than bury him in your garden.
I mean, yeah, they could have. Yeah. They probably would. You know what? If they did that, they probably would never have found him.
That's right. Probably not. I mean, now there's a lot more houses than there were back then. So all it takes, I just think with cases like this, all it takes is for like one person to be looking on Instagram or Twitter or wherever and see a comment and say, do you remember that guy that used to work at the golf course that we always used to see really late at night when dad was coming home from work? Do you remember we always used to see him carrying those bags? Stuff like that. I think there is definitely ways to say, to solve things like this.
But we're getting to the point where the people that are able to say that about like cases like this are becoming
gone,
less and less as the years go by. Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually there's not going to be anyone that's going to be able to come forward with that sort of information.
That's right. And that's it. So. That's the problem, is that And that's what I say to you, like I always say to you in frustration, the more cases I find like this, the more frustrating it is, because I feel like we need to do more. They need to every sort of 5 or 6 years or something, they need to give a little bit of information, even if it's not, I mean, I understand they can't give it all to us, but why?
I wonder if this is one of those cases where they know who it is, or they think they know who it is, but they just didn't have the evidence to convict.
Yeah, maybe. Again, it could be.
I wouldn't be
Interesting,
shocked
isn't it?
if that's the case.
No, I wouldn't
It
be
is.
shocked either.
Yeah.
I agree. I wouldn't be shocked either. But there we are. That's our case for this week.
Very good. Thank you very much for that.
No problem. No problem. So it's this point in our show where we like to give you something to smile about and try not to disturb you too much. So we like to do a feature called Dumb Criminal.
Hey, Captain Stupid Poopy Pants, use a dummy.
So usually, if an inmate is able to escape jail or prison, you wouldn't expect them to come back.
What
right?
do you mean? Oh, if they come back from
Like
escaping?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Could you imagine watching Shawshank Redemption and Andy Dufresne escaping and crawling through the sewers only to go, okay, I'm going to come back.
Yeah,
right?
I miss
no,
it.
It doesn't happen.
I'm coming back. No.
Well, for one prisoner, he in fact was able to escape a federal facility in Beaumont, Texas, but came back.
Did you forget something?
And the reason he did not forget something. So at the time he was this was back in, I think, 2018. He was 27 years old. His name was Joshua Randall Hansen. So he was observed leaving prison in the evening. It was like about 6 p.m. Right. And he went and he was observed retrieving a duffel bag.
Yeah.
Okay. After leaving the facility. But instead of leaving and continuing on his way, he came back into the facility. Now, when he arrived back to the facility, he was arrested and authorities would confiscate the bag. And they found that he actually had escaped prison to go pick up this bag that was full of alcohol, tobacco, snacks, fruits, and plenty of home-cooked food. So he escaped jail
to go get food for his
booze,
mates.
Cigarettes, snacks, and food, and brought it back with him.
That is crazy. Why didn't you just
so
run?
Instead of going...
Run, Forrest, run.
Just run.
Get out. Oh, no.
Yeah, so he...
I hope they didn't charge him with any more, though. I hope they didn't give him more time on his sentence, because he had the opportunity there to leave.
Did. He was in federal prison. He was serving. He had just over 2 years sentence for conspiring to distribute designer drugs.
Okay,
but he ended up getting additional time for the escape as well as marijuana possession charges. So he got more time added on just to go outside, get a duffel bag.
Oh, did they let him keep the food?
Tobacco and fruits. Oh, no, they took it.
So it wasn't really worth it, was it, idiot? What an idiot.
No. Man, I understand the food in jail is crap.
Yeah.
But man, if you get out of facility,
yeah,
just take your chance.
Where are you going to put it all?
Go to McDonald's, get yourself a Big Mac. Yeah.
Where are you going to put all of that? So not only did he actually escape and get all this stuff, which he couldn't even eat or keep, he's now got extra time on his sentence. He didn't even... that's crazy. Yeah. That is crazy.
But how does he think he's going to be able to walk through prison
exactly
with a duffel bag?
Where did he put it all? When he gets back to his cell, where the hell is he going to hide all that stuff?
Under his pillow. I don't know.
Home-cooked food. And now his mum or whoever's cooked it has gone, damn, I just did all that cooking for you, and now the guards are eating it all. Oh, that's crazy. That's a good one. That's
apparently,
a really good one.
this facility had some issues with this before, where basically inmates had been essentially making up their own in and out privileges at the facility. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of dumb people that are involved in this case. So you have an inmate who is able to just walk out of a facility and doesn't just run.
No.
And then you have basically a facility and you have guards who are just like, okay.
Yeah, he'll be back. Just gone to get
He'll
a
be back.
snack.
Could you imagine though, like after you capture it and like you look to see what's in there,
Yeah.
and there's like this home cooked food. You probably like some of grandma's chicken and some mashed potatoes and stuff.
Yeah, gravy.
Guards go to the little break room and they have a nice little potluck thanks to Joshua Randall Hansen.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Guys,
oh, well done, Joshua.
Just go. Just run. Just run. Get out
just
and run.
No, just stay in there and serve you 2 years and you'll be free.
Oh, no, yeah.
And you can have as much stuff as you
just 2
want.
years. Yeah.
It's just 2 years left.
Exactly.
24 months. Behave yourself. You might get out even earlier on good behavior. Then get out, eat what you want, have all the fried chicken that you want, But just, I don't know.
I don't know what the penalties are for the marijuana possession, whatever. But I'm assuming escape could be longer than the 2 years he had left, right?
Yeah.
What if they're like, yeah, you get 5 more years because you escaped?
Yeah. Silly man. I don't know. What are you going to do? Well, how silly is that? Well, thank you for this week's Dumb Criminal. If you've got any dumb criminals you'd like to send us, please do. We always gladly receive them. They do give us a chuckle. We will be back next week with another episode. It'll be Morgan's episode next week. For now, be nice.
And bye.